As of this morning, the $5 trillion global currency peg has snapped. While you were sleeping, a €93 billion trade bazooka was authorized in Brussels, aimed directly at the heart of the US Treasury. If you've ever wondered why the world's most essential industrial metal just vanished from the open market while your bank account stays frozen in time, this is for you. Welcome to Finance Evidence. We don't just follow the charts, we follow the receipts. Before we dive into the $1,000 silver reset, hit that like button and comment evidence below to help us fight the algorithm's suppression of this data. The JFK Logjam isn't a theory. It's a mathematical certainty that began the moment the Greenland tariffs hit the wire. Something strange is happening with the world's money, and your wallet is about to feel the $1,000 reset. To understand what's happening right now, we need to go back to 1961. That year, the United States government made a quiet but devastating decision. They suspended all sales of silver. Why? Because the vaults were running dry. By 1961, 80% of the government's silver stockpile had been drained. Industrial demand was exploding. Photography, electronics, medical equipment, all of it required silver. But the official price was artificially capped at $1.29 per ounce. Meanwhile, the actual market value was climbing past the face value of the coins themselves. People started melting down quarters and dimes for their metal content. The system was hemorrhaging silver faster than it could be mined. Then came President John F. Kennedy. On June 4, 1963, he signed Executive Order 11110. This order authorized the U.S. Treasury to issue silver certificates backed by physical silver, bypassing the Federal Reserve entirely. It was the last time the system faced what insiders called a logjam, a total breakdown in the flow of physical metal. Fast forward to today. In 2025, silver outperformed the S&P 500 by nearly 5 times. But here's what most people don't know. The global silver market is like a game of musical chairs, and the European Union just took away 90% of the chairs. The Greenland tariffs weren't just about geopolitical posturing. They were the trigger for the largest reconfiguration of global trade since World War II. And silver, the forgotten monetary metal, is at the center of it all. But historians found something even more alarming hidden in Executive Order 11110. Kennedy's move wasn't just about currency. It was about breaking the stranglehold that certain financial interests had over the nation's money supply. The silver certificates he authorized were a direct challenge to the fractional reserve banking system. According to archived documents from 1963, Kennedy understood something critical. When physical metal stops flowing, the entire illusion of paper wealth collapses. Think about this. In 1961, the government held approximately 2 billion ounces of silver. By 1965, just 4 years later, that stockpile had been slashed to less than 400 million ounces. An 80% drain in less than half a decade. Where did it all go? Into industry. Into coins that were immediately melted down. Into the hands of anyone who understood that the paper price didn't reflect reality. Here's the human story behind those numbers. Imagine you're a family in Berlin in 1964. Your father works at a camera factory. Silver is essential for photographic film. But the factory can't get enough of it because the US government has locked down exports to protect its own dwindling reserves. Production slows. Jobs are cut. Your family's income drops. All because of a logjam in a single metal. Now fast forward to today. That same family's grandchildren live in Berlin in 2026. They want to buy a single physical silver coin as insurance against inflation. They go to the bank. Sold out. They check online dealers. Sold out. They call a coin shop. 6-week waiting list. This isn't just history. It's a blueprint for the collapse of your purchasing power. The pattern is identical. Artificially suppressed prices. Exploding industrial demand. Physical shortages while paper markets pretend everything is fine. But a deeper danger was still building in the halls of the European Commission. Yet this wasn't the worst part of the EU's retaliation. On January 19, 2026, the European Union announced the revival of retaliatory tariffs on €93 billion worth of American goods. The Guardian and Equity Capital both confirmed the reports. A 10% blanket tariff, with threats to escalate to 25% or higher. But here's what the mainstream media isn't telling you. This isn't just about bourbon and motorcycles. This is about the physical flow of precious metals. You see, the London Bullion Market Association, known as the LBMA, has historically been the clearinghouse for global silver and gold trades. The term Loco London refers to metal that is physically stored in London vaults and used as the benchmark for international pricing. But when the EU tariffs hit, something broke in this system. Silver that was supposed to flow from London to the COMEX in New York, the main futures exchange in the United States, suddenly faced a wall. Not a literal wall, but a financial one. Import tariffs, export restrictions, regulatory red tape designed to punish American buyers. The 10% tariff is just the start. The real logjam begins when the EU triggers its anti-coercion instrument for the first time in history. This is a mechanism that allows Brussels to impose sanctions, freeze assets, and block trade with any nation it deems to be engaging in economic coercion. Translation: if you're an American bank trying to import physical silver from Europe, you might find your shipments indefinitely delayed or your accounts frozen. Let me give you a story to illustrate what this means on the ground. There's a small industrial solar manufacturer in Stuttgart, Germany. They need silver for photovoltaic cells. The most cost-effective source has always been American refined silver, imported at relatively low costs due to free trade agreements. But now, a 25% tariff on American silver. The company's margins evaporate overnight. They have three choices: absorb the cost and go bankrupt, raise prices and lose customers, or halt production entirely. They chose option 3. 47 workers laid off. Production stopped. Now multiply that story by 10,000 companies across Europe. Then multiply it again by the reverse situation in the United States, where manufacturers can't get European-sourced components without facing reciprocal tariffs. What happened next shocked researchers at the International Monetary Fund, who saw a spiral of escalation that no one was prepared for. Gold hit $4,700 per ounce on January 18th. Silver tested $95. Markets were reeling. But the real shock was what happened behind closed doors. Reports began to surface of a $50 billion emergency liquidity injection by the Federal Reserve to save a systemically important bullion bank from a catastrophic margin call. The name of the bank was never officially disclosed, but insiders pointed to one of the major players in the LBMA system. And this wasn't even the real threat to the LBMA. Economists at BNP Paribas just signaled the unthinkable. According to LBMA vault data from December 2025, London's precious metal vaults experienced record drawdowns. Physical silver and gold were flowing out at unprecedented rates, heading to India, China, and other parts of Asia. The vaults that once held the backbone of global metal liquidity are now at their lowest levels in a decade. David Wilson, a senior metals analyst, stated publicly, "The physical market is definitely easing." But here's what he didn't say. The logjam means the metal is trapped where it can't be used to save the banks. Let me explain the mechanics of how the LBMA actually works, because this is critical to understanding the crisis. When you buy silver on the paper market, through an ETF or a futures contract, you don't actually own physical metal. You own a claim on metal that supposedly exists in a vault somewhere. The LBMA operates on a fractional reserve model, just like banks. For every 100 ounces of paper silver traded, there might only be 10 ounces of actual metal in the vault, maybe less. The system works as long as everyone doesn't try to withdraw their metal at the same time. But what happens when a tariff wall goes up and metal can't flow freely between jurisdictions? What happens when Asian buyers start demanding physical delivery instead of paper promises? You get a bank run. But instead of people lining up outside a bank to withdraw cash, you get institutions lining up to withdraw metal. And when the vault is empty, the game is over. This is exactly what happened in December 2025. According to vault reports, net outflows from London exceeded 300 million ounces of silver equivalent when you factor in gold conversions. That's more than half of annual global silver mine production, drained from the vaults in a single month. Some investors already reversed this trend by moving into allocated physical storage. Allocated means you own specific bars with specific serial numbers. They can't be lent out or rehypothecated. They're yours. But most investors are still holding unallocated paper claims. And when the LBMA declares force majeure, those claims become worthless. Here's the unsettling truth that no one in the mainstream financial media wants to admit. We are returning to a world where hard assets are the only collateral that matters. Not promises, not digital ledger entries, not government guarantees. physical metal in your possession. But a secret liquidity injection was already happening behind closed doors. The $50 billion Fed intervention wasn't just about saving one bank. It was about preventing a cascade failure across the entire precious metals market. Here's how the crisis unfolded. On January 15th, a major bullion bank, let's call them Bank X, had sold massive amounts of paper silver to clients. Short positions that assumed the price would stay suppressed. But when the tariffs hit and physical supply dried up, the price spiked. Bank X faced a margin call. They needed to either post tens of billions in additional collateral or buy back their short positions at a massive loss. Either option would have bankrupted them. So the Fed stepped in. Emergency liquidity, backdoor bailouts disguised as routine market operations. But this only bought time. It didn't solve the underlying problem. There isn't enough physical silver to cover the paper claims. The global supply deficit for silver is estimated at over 500 million ounces. That means industrial demand plus investment demand exceeds mining supply by 500 million ounces every single year. Where does that deficit get filled? By draining above-ground stockpiles, jewelry getting melted down, government reserves being sold off, LBMA vaults being emptied. But what happens when there's nothing left to drain? Silver's role in the modern economy makes this a national security issue. Artificial intelligence data centers require silver for thermal management and conductivity. Electric vehicles use silver in battery systems and charging infrastructure. Solar panels, medical devices, water purification, all of it depends on silver. And here's the kicker. There's no substitute. You can't replace silver in most of these applications. It has the highest electrical and thermal conductivity of any metal. It's antimicrobial. It's essential. When Citibank analysts recently published a report openly discussing $1,000 silver, the financial world took notice. These aren't fringe conspiracy theorists. This is one of the largest banks in the world, with access to data and models that most of us will never see. Their conclusion? The current price of silver doesn't reflect its strategic value or its supply constraints. A repricing is inevitable. The only question is when. Alternative solutions are emerging. Some investors are diversifying into what's called outside money. These are assets that exist outside the traditional banking system. Physical gold and silver that you hold directly, not through a custodian. Land, commodities, things that have intrinsic value regardless of what happens to the financial system. The Greenland tariff, as it's now being called, wasn't really about Greenland. It was about redrawing the lines of global trade in a way that favors physical assets over financial engineering. And we're witnessing the largest wealth transfer in human history. Wealth moving from those who hold paper promises to those who hold physical assets. So here's where we are. The JFK Logjam of 1963 is repeating itself in 2026, but on a much larger scale. The physical metal has stopped flowing. The paper markets are beginning to crack. And the institutions that promise to safeguard your wealth are scrambling to save themselves. The question you need to ask yourself is this. When the paper illusion finally evaporates, will you be standing on the side of the evidence or the side of the debt? If the LBMA declares a force majeure tomorrow and your paper silver becomes worthless, will you be holding the physical metal or just a digital IOU? Tell us your escape plan in the comments below. Subscribe to Finance Evidence for the truth they won't show you on TV. Like this video if you're ready for the $1,000 silver reset. Because the evidence doesn't lie, and neither do we. The reset is coming. The only question is whether you'll be ready.